New York City voters making their voices heard.
I'm looking for someone who's going to be fair.
A candidate who can refuse AIPAC money, who can be openly against genocide.
Someone who's going to give us what we're actually looking for.
I'm looking for him to oppose Trump.
It's somebody who's willing to take more radical stances on things.
Making their picks to represent their party in this year's midterm elections.
The AI oligarchs who are rigging our economy are scared of me.
This is not the America that we need in this country.
I'm the one person on this stage that has shown that I am the progressive champion.
What we need right now isn't another career politician in Congress. We need someone who will stand up and fight back.
From new faces looking to take over from congressional retirees to incumbents trying to keep their place on Capitol Hill.
We cannot afford to have rookies who don't know how to navigate that system and to get results.
I'm not going to erase my record as she tried to erase her tweets.
The votes now being counted. What to expect for New York City? We are live across the area as Picks on Politics starts right now.
This is Picks on Politics with Dan Manarino.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning into this primary night special edition of Picks on Politics. I am Dan Manarino, and we are streaming live right now on Pix 11 Plus. Months of canvassing and campaigning, endorsements, analysis, all of this leading up to this very moment. At this very hour, the polls are now closed, and we expect results any moment of the early voting and even some mail-in ballots at this hour. About a minute since polls closed, so let's give it a few. Tonight, we are following a core 4 set of matchups, okay, in our team coverage tonight. New York's 7th, 10th, 12th, and 13th congressional districts. Those are the big ones. The main theme of tonight, we may realize the full power of Mayor Zohran Mamdani's backing. The new mayor making endorsements in 3 of these races, but not for District 12, the one race that he gets to vote in because he lives there. That's where Gracie Mansion is, right? Let's begin our busy night of coverage with our senior political reporter, Henry Rossoff. He is live this evening at the Lander headquarters with the very latest on the race for New York 10, where the former controller, Henry, is now looking to unseat sitting Congressman Dan Goldman, and if the polls go his way, he might do it. So what's going on there where you are? Hey, Henry.
A lot of energy and excitement in this. We're at a brewery, effectively, their beautiful backyard that they have. It's hard to tell, but the whole place is packed, not necessarily behind me, where we are expecting to see former comptroller Brad Lander, perhaps as early as 9:30 if things go his way. Of course, he is backed by Mayor Zohran Mamdani, and rumor has it here, in fact, I've seen his advanced police detail, we might see Mayor Mamdani here tonight. Consider this a bit of a layup for Mayor Zohran Mamdani, whereas maybe over in New York 7, that's a three-pointer, and then New York 13 might be more of a half-court shot. So this is the race where Mayor Mamdani has endorsed that he is expected, his preferred candidate is expected to prevail based on the polls. You mentioned the polls. Our independent polling had Brad Lander up in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 points with not a lot of undecided voters, and that was a month ago. A lot of momentum since then. Lander's team feeling very, very good, they tell me. They are expecting and hoping for a victory speech sooner than later, and that will probably be where the night begins unless something very unexpected happens as we watch the results roll in. Now, on those results, Dan, we know that there have been at least around 450,000 New Yorkers voting. It's tracking, according to election watchers, like we're going to see about 525,000 votes in New York City. That includes the early and the mail and all of that. That'd be half of the mayoral last year. So not quite the Mamdani coalition that we saw, and that will bear out probably later as you step through talking to some of my colleagues who are over at other races.
Very interesting when you talk about those numbers right there, but I'm very curious what you said about the mayor's detail, right? This is a race in New York 10 where Mayor Mamdani came out early to support Brad Lander, and Brad Lander really rode that all the way to the finish line, even on our debate stage, Henry, when he was here. I mean, he mentioned Zohran Mamdani throughout the debate, but you saw his detail tonight, and could talk a little bit before I get to our panel about the influence of a Zohran Mamdani backing somebody like Lander.
I mean, it is everything, but also in this race, not everything. Let me explain. That sounds contradictory, right? Because of course you're going to hug Mayor Mamdani, who Brad Lander had that alliance with toward the end of the mayoral race last year. He's incredibly popular. Our polling showed with a very high approval among Democrats in this district. But let's not underestimate the fact that Brad Lander has been a councilman in this district. He's been a statewide comptroller. This is not like the endorsements where Mayor Mamdani had to make over in New York 7 and New York 13. Brad Lander's a recognizable name, and the progressive left has been coming after Dan Goldman for quite some time now and found their man in sort of this confluence of factors in Lander. So, like I said, the reason perhaps the polling heading into this one showed that Lander was very likely to be the one person that Mayor Mamdani endorsed who almost definitely was going to prevail is because Lander had some equity of his own, wasn't just purely relying on the mayor. But you'd have to be silly not to lean into that endorsement of literally the most popular politician in the entire state right now, Dan.
Okay, actually, Henry, we're just getting word right now that they called the race. Casey, and our producer right now, is telling us who they called the race for, Casey. I mean, we have the numbers that we can throw up on the screen right now. They called the race for Brad Lander. Okay, so there we go. Associated Press now calling this very race for Brad Lander, who has defeated now a sitting congressman, Dan Goldman. Has the news kind of broken there yet, Henry? These numbers just came in moments ago.
I heard, bear with me as I pan over.
Yeah,
we'll kind of try to show you a little bit of the crowd. There was a spattering of applause over there. There's no TVs actually out at this watch party, but we heard a spattering of applause, and I think the news is starting to. A little more applause just there. News is starting to sink in here, Dan, but I think the way that I would describe this crowd and these groups of supporters were they went in very, very confident. So while everyone is certainly happy and certainly happy for their candidate, and we're starting to see some more people filter in, perhaps Mr. Lander is going to arrive sooner than later, which is why I keep peeking off of my right shoulder here. But they came in pretty confident. And so this wasn't a sort of hold your breath moment and then that release of joy that we see sometimes at these election parties. This group was very confident, and this was the result they were expecting. Maybe not this quickly, but they were expecting it.
Yeah, I mean, that is a big news here. All right, and again, and not a surprise if you go by the poll numbers. Our last poll had him up 30 points in that race here. But for the first call of the evening, Brad Lander, the former controller, former New York City mayoral candidate, has defeated a sitting Congressman, Dan Goldman there. Henry, stand by as we come back to you if any news breaks there. I want to bring in our panel right now who is joining us. J.C. Polanco, professor of University of Mount St. Vincent, Democratic strategist Nick Smith, and government relations specialist Yvette Buckner to weigh in on this. Great to have all of you part of this big primary night coverage. First call of the evening right now has gone to Brad Lander. Yvette, let me begin with you and what this means for the moment in defeating Dan Goldman.
This is huge. This is huge. A sitting incumbent congressman is now been defeated. But as you said, no surprise, because people saw Brad Lander as an incumbent. And so they had voted for him over and over and over again, as opposed to someone like Dan Goldman, who people only came out for twice. This was really kind of something in the making that we were seeing, and even people on the ground were feeling it. I think Brad Lander, this is his moment. He's like done everything, talking about from immigration and ICE to right up into Israel and all of the issues that are really, really important to folks on the ground. I think this was his to win, and congratulations to him.
Yeah, if we can actually, guys, upstairs, I don't know if we have the camera that we can take right now over at Dan Goldman headquarters. I know we have a camera there. They didn't put the shot up just yet. I wonder if they're just not in a celebratory mood. That's the only shot we have right now is of that sign. So, you know, let me go over to JC right now. And in this moment, if you're Dan Goldman, what are you thinking? Where did I go wrong?
I'm upset if I'm Dan Goldman. Look, you go to the dictionary, you look up Democrat, there's Dan Goldman, right? He's the leading attorney against President Trump during his first impeachment trial. He's done everything right with immigration, with abolishing ICE, with helping folks getting out of with immigration issues. You take a look at his record on pro-choice. He's hit all the boxes, with the exception of one thing. You know, he supported Israel. And I'll tell you this, there's a kingmaker tonight, and that's the mayor. The Mayor Mamdani decided this was going to happen the moment he decided that he was not going to make Brad Lander first deputy mayor. He's a kingmaker tonight because get a load of this.
We only have one race called so far, JC.
He's a kingmaker. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because he decided in this race that he was not going to name Brad Lander first deputy mayor and had him face the congressman because he knew he wanted this. Had Brad Lander been first deputy mayor, this race would have never happened, and Goldman would have been heading to re-election.
Well, that is true. And guys upstairs, keep me honest on numbers that are coming in right now for the other races. let's take a look at the numbers for New York 7 as Nick, I'll come to you in a moment just to get your reaction on the Brad Lander. But let's throw the numbers for New York 7 right now, and we are waiting to see where we are. Look at that. Claire Valdez, 52.2% to Antonio Reynoso's 39.5%. Julie Wan now with 6.5%, 30% of the precincts reporting. So I'm guessing a lot of this is the early vote that may have come in already. But Claire Valdez with a significant lead over the Brooklyn Borough president. That would be the second person that Zohran Mamdani has endorsed in these races, right? And we saw that commercial with all three of them kind of raise their hands, the third being Daria Eliza Chevalier. But Nick, let me talk to you about the moment for Dan Goldman and Brad Lander.
Yeah, I think the Goldman loss is a lesson for Democrats really across the country. When the wind shifted a particular way in politics, you probably should figure out a way to go that direction. I think, and I love JC's point about being a good Democrat, but he didn't catch the pulse of this race, and he kind of couldn't. As someone who is pro-Israel, to your point, and someone who tried to thread a needle, it didn't work in this primary. And then when Lander combined forces with the mayor, the election was pretty much over at that point. So the question to me is how big a victory, not whether Brad was going to win.
Yeah, I mean, even on our debate stage, it became to the topic of Israel. He threaded that needle, like you said, but didn't want to answer specific questions about genocide, and actually said on the debate stage, I thought was very interesting, was where he said people don't care about this issue.
Yes.
He said, if I'm in the district, people don't care about it. But this is a very Jewish district that did care about this major issue that he disagreed with his opponent vastly on. A lot of the times you have these candidates who really do align on a lot of the issues. They're going to vote the same way when they get there to Washington, D.C. if they were to win. But on this issue, they were very different. Let's talk about New York 13 for a moment. Take a look at the numbers right here. This is a big race here between a sitting Congressman, Adriano Espaillat, and now another newcomer, Daria Eliza Chevalier, with a virtual tie. 26% of the precincts now, 26% of the vote in, and it's a virtual tie here. And this was a feisty and fiery campaign between the two of them. When they had our forum right here between the two of them, they were going after each other. So let me get your thoughts on what you're looking at right here.
Wow, if I'm Adriano Espaillat, I'm saying, whoa, because this came out of nowhere. This race a month ago was not a race. It became a race in the last few weeks, and Mamdani really putting his thumb on the scale and going hard for Daria Eliza has changed the game. And I think that Adriano right now is probably having what almost felt like an Yvette Clarke moment back in 2020 when Adam Benedenko went against her and she almost lost. It shook something up. It made her sit up and say, you know what, I have to be more engaged, I have to talk to the voters more, and we're going to see whether or not this is going to be a Democratic change and the center of gravity for Democratic policies shift to the left.
It's going to be very interesting also, JC, we were talking earlier about the vote and the low turnout so far. It's pretty on par with a primary from a couple years ago, but it's definitely way lower than a mayoral election last year, about half of what turned out for the mayoral election right now. And it's going to be interesting to see who came out to vote for these candidates.
It is going to be very interesting. I know that district during early voting had large numbers of people over 50 coming out in large numbers. I can't wait to see the rest of the numbers come in. Was the Mamdani factor going through that neighborhood, going through that district, neighborhood by neighborhood, going bar hopping with his candidate and making sure that the world knows that she's with him, whether or not that swayed a lot of younger people to vote today. So I'm going to take a look at those numbers as well. But it goes to show you what I said a little earlier. Look, Mayor Mamdani is the kingmaker of New York City. The reason why, listen to me, the reality is that the opponent of the chairman of the Hispanic Caucus of Congress is absolutely no one in the district. We never heard of her before. She doesn't lead an organization. She's not an elected official. There is no fingerprints of anything she's done to be able to go toe-to-toe, mano a mano with a man who's been there for a generation. Except one thing. She got the endorsement of Mayor Mamdani, and that was everything. Whether it was here, whether it's in the commercials, Mamdani, Mamdani, Mamdani. Just like when I go to coffee parties, all I do is say, Dan Manarino, Dan Manarino, Dan Manarino, so that I can become popular. And I think it works for me. It works for her.
What are you going to say, Nick?
I live in this district, and first of all, I didn't see much of a ground game from the incumbent congressman. And I think if you know you have a credible challenger, you got to get a team together and get on the ground.
When did you know, though, she was credible?
A month and a
half ago, exactly.
But that's the problem for Espaillat, even if he hangs on. How are you so flat-footed that a challenger who no one knew a month ago is virtually tied in this primary race? It's very alarming for the congressman. And I agree with Yvette. They're shaking their boots tonight.
Yeah, I mean, interesting, though, in New York 12, this is somebody that a race where Mayor Zohran Mamdani could vote in but did not endorse in. So let's take a look right now at these numbers right here, right? Because in the beginning of this campaign, it was really Jack Schlossberg who was in the lead. Tonight, it is Micah Lasher with 41% in. Micah Lasher, an assemblyman who was the endorsed candidate from Jerry Nadler, as well as a number of others. And his closest opponent was Alex Boris, who had a great ground game. I mean, he was everywhere, virtually everywhere in this district, from the Upper West Side to the Upper East Side, Roosevelt Island, the big AI candidate that had lots of money were poured into this race. I think this was the most spent money in a race, in congressional race in the country right now. Jack Schlossberg, looking at these numbers right now, you know, if you're Jack Schlossberg and you were all the way in the lead in the beginning, what are you thinking tonight, JC?
I'm thinking maybe I should have gone on TV and talked because
he did towards the end.
Yeah, he did.
It was one of those things where
terrible.
he opened his eyes at the end, and all of a sudden he was coming on and doing all these media appearances.
Yeah, but remember, this is not. This district is different. The propensity of those voters to come out and vote, you're going to see the highest turnout of all the congressional districts coming out of that district. This is a very wealthy district. This is the East, West Side, Midtown Manhattan all together. These voters are engaged. They want to know, can you represent 720,000 of us in Congress? They're not concerned with endorsements as much and who's cool and who's coming through bar hopping in my hood. They're caring about what experience do you have legislating? And when you take a look at Boris and Lasher, those guys are assembly members, and they have a long record. So they're very hard to beat, and that's what you're seeing these two at the very top. And Michael Lasher had Mike Bloomberg, who's a saint in that district. He had a lot of support from Jerry Nadler, and the tentacles of all of those years in Congress and the support in the network all went to Michael Lasher. Michael Lasher's going to win tonight, and it's an incredible turnout.
Boris was everywhere. But why not endorse? If you're Mayor of Mamdani, why not endorse in this race that you live in the district you live in?
It's so interesting. My mother told me one time, sometimes your absence speaks louder than your presence. And his presence in other races was very present.
Yeah.
However, his absence spoke volumes. And so why didn't he endorse? I'm not sure if it's because, you know, he's trying to be protective of his former colleagues in the assembly and not get too involved in that way, and that's why he did more congressional races. But this was a missed opportunity for him to really get very much involved. But in this district in particular, just kind of picking up what JC said, is that because it was the true open race, as opposed to some of the others that had more incumbents, a true open race showed that people wanted to have something that was a continuum of Jerry Nadler and to continue to have the policy and the decisions and the resources brought back to the district.
Okay, Nick, stand by because I want to get out to our James 4 right now because I want to talk about this for a second. If you're just joining us, Mayor Zohran Mamdani has been working to make his presence known in primary races all around the city. Another one where he's going against the grain of the Democratic Party, like District 10, is District 13. And what are the results you're talking about? I'm getting messages in my ear. What are the results that we're talking about right now, guys? Oh, 13, New York 13. Okay, so here we go. Still a virtual tie, right? So take a look right here at the numbers, 47.7 to 47.3 for the incumbent. And he's looking at these numbers right now, wondering what he is thinking. If you're Adriano Espat, our James Ford is at the election headquarters of the opponent there, Miss Avilia Chevalier, tonight. So James, you're looking at these numbers as they're coming in, a virtual tie. What is the mood from that campaign where you are now that polls are closed and the numbers are coming in?
Sure, a lot of optimism. I can tell you, this is a very long space. We're at Sofrito, that is in the Danny Farrell Riverbank State Park. And at this end is where Daria Liza Avila Chevalier will appear, win or lose. But right now, I don't know if you heard that. That was a cheer from the folks at the other end of the room. I don't know. It really is a very long room, but they're looking at the results as they come in, and they are heartened certainly by this virtual tie at this point in the vote counting, and they're also heartened by Lander's win. As you know, certainly, with Lander having been endorsed by Mayor Mamdani and Chevalier being endorsed by Mamdani, they're feeling like the same outcome could end up happening, and that is a significant upset. One other thing related to that, when Chevalier went to the polls today, she was accompanied by His Honor, by Zohran Mamdani, who reminded voters that today is your day to make your voice known. And we know this much. The Democratic Socialists had a meeting earlier, just a couple of days ago, looking at the returns from early voting, their own exit polling, which was indicating that a lot of the voters tended to be older, and that could bode well for their opponent. So they upped their game to get younger people out to the polls. And I can tell you, it's looking right now like that has helped, if indeed it's younger voters who, like in the vote for Mamdani for mayor, played such a key role then. They're hoping the same thing happens now. There is a great sense of optimism here that we weren't so sure when the evening began, but as soon as polls closed, yeah, you could feel that sense of hope that might actually get realized. They're watching very closely here, Dan.
It's certainly one of the races, James, that we're going to pay close attention to throughout the night. Come back to us if you know more. I mean, we're talking about a difference of 200 votes at this hour, with 41% of the area in right now, that vote in. So stand by for us. I want to get to another big one. One of the toughest races to predict this primary season has been that of New York 7. It's been a dead heat in the polls between the Mamdani-endorsed candidate, State Assemblywoman Claire Valdez, and Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso. But look at these numbers right here. These are the numbers right now, with 45% of the vote in, 55.7% for Claire Valdez, the DSA-backed candidate of Zohran Mamdani, the Brooklyn Borough President at 35.5%, and the City Councilman Julie Wan at 6.5%. Our Eileen LaPalmer is with the Valdez camp tonight. If you're looking at these numbers, Eileen, I'm sure you're feeling good. But it was really tough during our debate, I don't know if you saw the debate, to find differences between the two candidates. They certainly agreed on mostly everything except the fact of who endorsed them.
Right. Right, Dan, and during that debate, as you're mentioning, there was a lot of, they were very friendly with each other. It was a very friendly debate, and they said afterwards that they are, in fact, friendly with each other. But let me take you here to this room right now. I am in East Williamsburg, Brooklyn. This is a warehouse turned party space, and it is certainly a party right now. Our photographer Shashi just flipped around there. You can see people are all watching the numbers come in, and there's a disco ball going, there's a DJ, and they are very inspired by what they are seeing so far. As you said, the Associated Press reporting that with 55% of the vote in, that Claire Valdez does have the lead right now. Again, but only 55% of the vote is in, and she has 22,000 votes as compared to Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso, who has about 13,000 votes. Now, I spoke with Valdez's communications director earlier tonight, and I asked him whether or not he was concerned about early voting because the turnout was so low in the early days of early voting, and here was his response.
It used to be the case that these kind of progressive or democratic socialist campaigns 8-9 years ago would benefit from low turnout primaries. That's just not the case anymore, especially after Mayor Mamdani's record-breaking victory last year. The coalition that he built of first-time voters, people who had left the political system, has really expanded the universe of people we're talking to. So the first few days were nail-biting. They were very low early votes, especially among younger voters. But after we got through the Knicks championship and the parade and the ceremony, I think people were able to exhale, think about politics again, and over the past few days, we've seen every day increase, not just turnout, but turnout among younger voters who were so key to the mayor's coalition and who were so key here in New York 7, which is, I think, the youngest congressional district in the city.
And we're hearing more cheering here now as numbers continue to come in. Again, you heard them saying about Valdez that she was going to be out at the polls, at the polling stations until the very last minute, and she was there up until 9 o'clock. We were originally expecting her here about 9:30, and we're also told there's a good possibility that Mayor Mamdani will also stop by here later tonight. Dan?
Something tells me, well, I don't know if you saw the advance team over at Henry's Live Shot, Eileen. He said he saw the mayor's advance team, which gave him an indication that over at Brad Lander's headquarters that the mayor was going to show up. Did you see that?
Yeah, no, there's no, we haven't seen the mayor's advance team yet, which is one of the signs that I was looking for. But we do expect that perhaps possibly afterwards they would be coming here. And the crowd here is continuing to cheer as more people fill into the room. So the excitement's building, and we are expecting Valdez here shortly. Okay, we'll come back to Eileen. Stand by. Keep us posted on any new developments there. The next race we're focusing on comes a very crowded field. We were talking about this with our panel, and that is the race looking to replace retiring Congressman Jerry Nadler, who has served that district for over 30
30 years. New numbers just in right now for New York 12 is 39.5% for Michael Lasher. Look at this. Alex Bora is now pulling up to 34.5% in a 5-point difference, really, between the two of them, with Jack Schlossberg in a distant third with 10.8%. This is with 64% still in. And as JC was saying on our panel earlier, this might be the highest voter turnout in all of these districts. Our Jay Dow is with the Michael Lasher camp tonight. And Jay, this was a race that was a toss-up in our poll between Lasher and Alex Bora, as we're seeing them 5 points ahead. What is the feeling where you are right now at Lasher's headquarters?
Well, good evening to you, Dan. And there were just cheers in the crowd a few minutes ago when they brought up the numbers, and the numbers at that point were about 8 points difference between Lasher and Boris, with Lasher leading. But as you just mentioned, that Boris has pulled up and has closed the lead. He's now down about 5 percentage points. You know, in my experience in covering all of these campaigns, it's always interesting to watch the ebb and the flow of the evening, how the crowd will get excited and then they'll become a little bit more quiet as they, watch the results come in. As these votes are tallied, we are going to see some fluctuations. It is not guaranteed that Boris is going to close this gap. It is also not guaranteed that Lasher is going to increase this gap. I think we have to wait and see with a race that has been this close and that involves a district this large, a combined district. If you recall, we're talking about a huge portion of Manhattan. We heard the panel talk about it earlier. The Upper West Side, the Upper East Side, Midtown, going all the way down to the Village. These are affluent voters. This is the most affluent district in the city, and many would argue it is among the most affluent, the wealthiest in the country. So you have a lot of voters who are paying close attention to the issues, and they want to know where both candidates stand. They're paying very close attention, and that is reflected in the numbers that are coming in right now. Dan.
Jay, thank you very much. Jay, stand by for us. I want to get to a very important call right now for NY-7, which has now officially been called for Claire Valdez defeating Antonio Reynoso, the Brooklyn Borough President, and the City Councilwoman Julie Wan. I want to get right to our panel right now. And JC, I'm going to come to you second. I'm going to go to Nick first, but only because I know you're having. Nick, when you look at this right now, Claire Valdez with about 58% of the vote compared to Antonio Reynoso in a distant 33.5%. Claire Valdez right now must be feeling the energy, but what does this mean now, the second Mamdani-backed DSA candidate?
It is only 9:26, and this is a pretty quick call for this district. And, this was, among all the seats, the most DSA-friendly district. Younger voters, new folks coming into the district, they very much care about housing issues, displacement issues. They're very union-friendly. And although Reynoso has a solid, in my read, a record of achievement, these folks want to change, and I think she represents fundamental change from, remember, she bucked the incumbent Congress member, Nydia Velázquez, in this race, and she pulled it off. So I'm going to go back to JC's point, actually. I didn't want to say mayor's the kingmaker, but we could be heading in that direction.
Okay, JC, what?
I'm shocked.
Are you?
Sure, I am.
Did you think it was going to go Reynoso?
Look, I know the commie corridor is there.
Yeah.
I understand. They talk about displacement, but a lot of them are doing the displacing. So it's interesting to me to see that when you think about that district, Nydia Velázquez is a hero to the Latino community. I agree with her about 1% of the time politically. But I wrote my term paper on her. This is someone who was the first Puerto Rican woman ever elected to Congress, over 30 years of legislation and work done in Congress. And she says, I want the two-term borough president, two-term city council member, chair of many committees in the city council to succeed me. He is more progressive than anything I could ever imagine, Dan. So on record, he seems to be the perfect fit. But there was one thing he did not have, and I said it before we even started this whole thing, and it was Mayor Mamdani's endorsement. Reynoso did not have that, and that is gold right now. What you're watching there is him taking people out of complete obscurity and putting them in Congress. That's a kingmaker, and that's what we're witnessing tonight.
Well, and if you're Reynoso, he actually said the mayor asked him not to run for this seat at all. And Nydia Velázquez was the one urging him to do so. But, I mean, this is a litmus test tonight of Mayor Mamdani, and if we're looking at anything right now, just to give you some perspective on the numbers, we have on New York 13, Daria Liza Avilia Chevalier pulling ahead now of Adriana Espo by 2% to 22,590 votes to his 21,900 votes. So that is right there on the screen. And while the numbers are tight, it's looking very good for Zohran Mamdani, who was. People were calling him out, saying he shouldn't have endorsed. He shouldn't have gotten into these races. He should have stayed away from them.
He's looking at me.
I am looking at you. I stand by you, but I actually want to get back out to our Eileen LaPalma right now at the Valdez headquarters. Eileen, we called this race about 5 minutes ago right now. I know you said she was close to arriving. The energy looks like a party behind you, obviously.
Who are part of the Democratic Socialists of America, and now...
Yeah, actually, Dan, we turned the camera around because this is the party that's happening right now behind me. The AP called the race for Claire Valdez literally 1 minute after I just went live with you, and this room erupted into cheers. Right now, they are booing because of something that's on the monitor, not because of the results of this election. And they were chanting a short time ago, DSA, for the Democratic Socialists of America. That is the party for this candidate and, of course, Mayor Mamdani. So they had thought that this could go very late into the night, that this had been so close in the polling between Claire Valdez and Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso. But again, this happened a lot quicker than even Valdez's campaign people thought would. By 9:23, the Associated Press did call this race for Valdez. And so the party will continue here. There's a disco ball up ahead, and people here are waiting for some of the other candidates to show up here. And again, we said earlier we are expecting that Mayor Mamdani might show up here tonight. Dan?
Something tells me that he is going to. It's 9:30. The night is early. It's already called. Something tells me he might hit Lander and then make his way over to where you are. We want to take that speech when it happens, Eileen, so let us know when Claire Valdez arrives. But I want to bring Yvette into the conversation once again, because if you're looking at this right now, I'm just kind of curious as to what this means for the moment in New York City. The New York Post had an article the other day that said people were tired of institutional Democrats and that they were looking for change. Now, it's the New York Post that was reporting that. But what does this night so far say about that?
Well, I think what we saw earlier when Mamdani won last year, people said this might be a moment. And he is proving right now that this is a movement. And it's a movement for DSA and for socialists. And it's a different direction than most of the Democrat establishment has really even been ready for. I think the question we have to really ask is, what does this mean for 2028? Because if I'm Hakeem Jeffries right now, I'm thinking, how is this going to affect what happens when folks go to the polls in 2 years from now? Because the Republican Party will use this and say, look at New York. New York is, becoming a socialist town. And what do we need for the Republicans to do to come out? So how do we think about this from that point of view? But Mamdani, for sure, tonight, people are looking for change. He's got the Mamdani magic, and he's like, DJ Khaled. All I do is win, 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 no matter what.
But what does it mean overall for the Democratic Party moving forward?
I think look.
And the messaging.
The truth is this. When we take a look at the numbers, you're going to see that about 85% to 86% of all Democrats stayed home and they didn't even vote.
That is true.
That is incredible. And the minority of Democrats, a super tiny minority of Democrats, are making all of these major decisions across the city. And that is something that Democrats need to wake up. The county committees that were once the kingmakers for judges and county committees and who's going to go to the Assembly and the Senate, that is going to be completely usurped by Justice Democrats and DSA, many of whom are coming from outside, and usurping the experiences and knowledge and all of that building that was taking place for a generation. And they've proven tonight that they're able to do it and win and be popular while doing it. It's not like people are mad, people are celebrating. So I think there has to be a reckoning with the Democrats. Are you to continue having close party primaries? And if so, then you have to turn out and vote. You can't have 87% of your people stay home, because this is what's going to end up happening. It's really interesting. But to your point, Dan, the party's moving so far to the left. I was a Republican for 21 years, and I'm going to tell you this. They're sitting in rooms right now thinking of how they're going to use these victories to defeat Democrats in purple states and purple districts and be able to get to 270 votes in 2028. And all of this is just going to help the messaging for Republicans. I promise you that this won't sell in Nevada, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. It just won't.
I want to get back to New York 12 for a moment right now. Nick, I'll come back to you, but I want to get to New York 12 once again right here, because this was a big race in the seat to fill Jerry Nadler's seat, right? So let me throw up the numbers once again. As the numbers continue to come in, 9:33 polls closed for 33 minutes. We have Michael Lasher, 39%, to Alex Borez, 35%. It's becoming a 4-point race race between these two. We said they were going to be the two front runners. A distant third is Jack Schlossberg. 78% of the vote now in with this tight race. We brought you to the Lasher camp with our Jay Dow. Let's head over to the Borez side of things right now, where Jim Vassell is at his watch party. And Jim, what is the latest for you? What's the mood now as this certainly has tightened to a 4-point race?
Well, Dan, supporters of Alex Borez are enjoying the night here in the Georgia room of the Freehand Hotel here in Kips Bay. And as you mentioned, as the results come in and you see that these tight results so far, the energy in the room has kicked up a bit. Like some of the campaigns we heard from tonight, there are no TVs in this room, at least that I can see. If they did, they turned it on the last couple minutes or so. But people kind of just taking the night in. They seem to be enjoying the night so far. But, of course, there is that little air of anticipation. These folks hoping that their candidate, Alex Borez, can pull out the victory tonight. As we know, Alex Borez has been hanging around near the top of the polls, maybe not at the top of the polls, but certainly within shouting distance, within striking distance. And, of course, these folks here tonight hoping that he can pull out a victory. So I would say anticipation is the #1 feeling that I can sense at this hour. Of course, this is the man who says he's a fifth-generation New Yorker and born and raised here in Manhattan, and still lives here in the 12th district with his family. He called himself throughout his campaign a fighter for families and the worker, and as we've seen in some of his campaign ads, going back to when he was a child, he said he stood in the picket line with his father when he was locked out and fighting for those factory workers. Now, of course, AI has been one of the core issues across this campaign, but a couple of the other things that he's really hit on is taking on Donald Trump, taking on corruption, and overall just helping struggling families who are struggling with these increasing prices in this district. Again, Dan, the mood here at this hour inside the George Room of the Freehand Hotel is one of anticipation, but overall, I would say this is a very optimistic crowd at this moment.
All right, we shall see how all of this plays out. Let's throw the numbers up again upstairs, everybody, for New York 12 in particular here, just to take a look at the Lasher-Borez lead. So 39.1% to 35% with Borez. That's becoming a two-man race here. And on the debate stage, it seemed that way, guys. I'm going to bring back our panel. We have Yvette Buckner, J.C. Polanco, and Nick Smith with me right now. And it seemed that way on the debate stage, right? When we had the four of them, George Conway, you can't forget about him, too. He was on the debate stage as well. Everybody kind of was going after Micah Lasher and Alex Borez. Alex Borez, we were talking about this while Jim was doing his live shot, ran a very strong campaign on the ground, was seemingly everywhere in the district. Everybody who I know lives on the Upper West Side and Upper East Side was like, what is with this Borez guy? He has cardboard cutouts on the street that were outside subway stations because he couldn't make it some places with flyers and pamphlets. So Nick, let me start with you here and kind of what you think of the two of them and how they ran their campaigns.
Yeah, this is interesting to me. This district, unlike 7, New York 7 is the least DSA friendly, the least challenger friendly. So the fact that Lasher is ahead now and could win is not shocking to me. And I'm a little bit surprised, though, by the spoiler effect of Schlossberg. I think he came in with a lot of momentum and name ID, and now he's around at 10%. So I think the lesson is for this district, they're very much institutionalists. They don't like a lot of riffraff and candidates from left field, right field, and that's probably why Lasher is doing pretty well in this race.
Let me ask you an honest question about Schlossberg. Yeah. Did he come in with momentum, or did the media? Did everyone say, well, it's a Kennedy, and he's got a big name, and he's got a big name behind him. I mean, he was all over social media, but was there real, I guess, passion for him from the beginning?
You know, I'll be honest. I watched Love Story, and I think that there was
that at the same time, right? There was that.
There was that, and there was a lot of excitement around that. And I think that kind of boosted people to really understand who the Kennedys were. There's a whole generation of people who don't understand their influence, and so that coming out, there was a moment that he could have really just really went forward, but he lost it because not showing up for calls and doing the fundraising. Not that he needs the fundraising, but getting his name out there. He didn't really do the work that that was done by Micah and Alex. These are two professional candidates and elected officials who know what it takes to like be in the field. As a political consultant, it's like to be everywhere and at the same time and be ubiquitous, because the cardboard cutouts of Boris was genius. Right, he's there. It's like, you know, you get to learn more about him. Schlossberg thought he'd write on the name and that people would remember and have this, this love for Camelot, and that just did not turn into actual energy on the ground.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that this is one of the races that is taking so long to call tonight.
I'm just excited about the numbers. I always like to see voter turnout. Look, this race is, as I mentioned, highest propensity. These are educated voters. They're not going to just go along with whoever had the highest TikTok following, which is what worked in the mayoral election last year. But I digress. But I got to tell you this. When you have affordable law alum like Jerry Nadler, sorry, St. John's.
I knew it was coming.
I knew it was coming. When you have affordable law alum like me, you have 30 years in, you have all those connections in, you say, I want Michael Lasher. Michael Lasher is going to go walk into this, and he's going to be formidable. It's going to be tough to defeat Michael Lasher. And I got to tell you something else. This is an institutionalized district. This is a district that cares about experience, and this is a district with a lot of Jews, right? Let's go. There's a lot of Jews, and the idea of, genocide and this, and somebody else called it genocide, that's not going to work there. So you saw that in your debate, the idea that we're not going to play that game. I'm focusing on other things. And that's the kind of district where that kind of messaging worked. And I wonder if Dan Goldman today is thinking, I was just in the wrong district. I should have been in the 10th. I would have done very well. And about the Kennedy thing, had he been John Kennedy Jr., who you and I know, he's too young.
He's too young. We definitely
John Kennedy Jr., he would have done very well here.
He would have killed it.
This guy's not the same.
He's not the same generation.
Doesn't have that thing.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back right now to one of the big winners of the night, who is Brad Lander in NY-10, who is arriving right now with who else? Mayor Zoran Mamdani. They are walking in together. So here we are in Brooklyn right now as the two of them make their way. Of course, Brad Lander defeating over 30 points the sitting Congressman Dan Goldman. Let's listen to the sound.
Thank you for being here. Still, thank you for being here.
Is it amplified? Starting.
Can I talk? Okay, so how great does this feel?
Yeah, so while we kind of watch this all play out right now, this is a big moment with Brad Lander's wife, of course, doing the welcome. We'll come back to this, of course, when Brad Lander and the mayor take to the podium here. But this is a big moment for Brad Lander. And I'm wondering right now, you kind of alluded to it earlier, and he had said, look, on the debate stage, Dan Goldman came after him saying, look, you wanted to be in the Mamdani administration. He didn't give you the job, so you ran for Congress, and it paid off. It paid off, Nick.
Yes, that is, among all the candidates, he was kind of the front runner from the beginning of this particular race. I am not surprised about this 30-plus point win. He just captured the moment. And let's be clear, I heard you mention he's an incumbent, got that. But he kind of adopted this like, challenger in terms of just the structure.
Yeah, guys, can we keep that shot up too while Nick's talking? Can we still see the shot?
Yeah, so I think Brad he caught the moment. He got the mayor's endorsement. The folks there know him. And unfortunately, I think Yvette said earlier that Goldman won by just a couple of points, 2 rounds. That hurt him. Plus the Israel thing, it hurt him. So I'm not shocked that Brad is running by 30-plus points.
Now, if you're Dan Goldman, what are you doing right now? What's next?
Dan Goldman will be absolutely fine. He is a he's a national figure. He's going to give a concession speech tonight. He's going to go ahead and practice law and do bigger things. I mean, it's unfortunate that he won. I think he was a great Congress member, but he was not the right fit for this district, right? That's the reality. Yep. And I feel terrible to see it happen. But guess what? This is the power of Mayor Mamdani, because I think, and I'm going to tell you, Dan, you may disagree with me, but I think that the mayor was playing chess. He said, Brad Lander, I know you want to be first deputy mayor because you endorsed me and supported me during the ranked choice voting, but I'm going to keep you out because I want you to do something else. And I want you to beat this man in a primary, and he did. And I think that's really what went down. There wasn't a diss. It was just a change of plans.
I think it's a huge moment for Brad. Brad was a citywide elected official, which is huge. And the moment he said he was going to run and step down from his seat, I think all of us in kind of the political world were like, whoa.
Run for mayor.
Run for mayor, excuse me, yes, run for mayor. We were all like, whoa. And if you don't win, then what happens? And so it was a huge risk, huge reward. And so I think what we're seeing is that Brad, he did his time, he has the influence, he has the power, and he had the Mamdani magic.
Well, and it's interesting right now, and guys upstairs, I don't know if you want to throw up the numbers right now while we're talking and waiting for Brad Lander to take the stage, of New York 13 right now, because this would be the third race with a Mamdani-backed candidate. It hasn't been called just yet. Don't slam your mug on the table too hard. But look right here at the number of votes that's in, 77% in, with Daria Liza Avila Chevalier, 48.7%. This is a tight race against the sitting Congressman Adriano Espaillat, 46.5%. And there's still about 25% of the vote to come in, but this is a tight race here. And what do you make of these numbers for this particular district, and who is coming out to vote in this district?
I don't think we've had this much excitement since the AOC win, honestly. Like, this is incredible. We may have a couple of incumbents losing
mental health therapy for me.
Losing in this wave. And, there's a boogeyman here, which I think is also a part of this conversation. That's President Trump. I think if President Trump were not the president, you wouldn't see all these challengers. And that shows me that voters are pissed. They want results, and they're not happy with good Democrats like Dan Goldman. They want actual fundamental changes in issue policies and the candidates, I see.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because nobody really knew much of what Daria Liza stood for before this campaign right here. So while we continue to wait for Brad Lander to take the podium right there, I do want to squeeze in our James Ford, who is at Daria Liza's headquarters right now. And James, you're looking at these numbers as they come in. This is a tight race here. 25% of the vote still needs to come in. We're talking about a difference of just a few thousand votes.
Yeah, we are, and we're talking about a difference of real excitement, certainly here at the Chevalier headquarters, where they are watching and they are cheering and they are seeing that win by Lander, that win by Valdez, and have very good reason to believe that it could happen here as well. Real quick, joining us now from the Chevalier campaign is Natalia Latif, the media director. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
How are you feeling right now? Seeing these numbers come in, we're not all the way there yet, but your candidate keeps this kind of 2-point lead.
I'm feeling great. I am feeling like New York City and the world is seeing what we have been saying on this campaign all along, that this district is ready for change, that this district is ready for a leader that actually shows up for everyday people, that is making the rounds, that's known in community far before an election results. And we've had some awesome wins tonight from the entire slate, and I am so excited for us to be next.
And we can hear in the background.
It's amazing.
As we've pointed out, now, your candidate, Daria Liza Avila Chevalier, will go up to the podium once she gets here. But right now, it's a very long room. On the other end is where the watch party is. And we just heard the cheering. How would you describe the overall emotion?
Honestly, it's almost indescribable right now. It's a mix of, just being exhausted and excited and just like thrilled that no matter what happens tonight, we have come out on top. We have come out showing the world that a 10-year incumbent that has been in office in some capacity or another for almost 30 years is not consolidating in his district.
James, stand by. I don't mean to cut your interview off, James, but Mayor Mamdani has taken the podium over at the Brad Lander headquarters right there. And so let's listen in as Brad Lander, oh, here he is taking the microphone. Let's listen in.
It was an honor 1 year ago to work together to elect him the mayor of New York City. And it's been thrilling as he has been showing us what it looks like to fight for a New York City everyone can afford. For a place everyone is welcome. And for a city where we don't compromise on anyone's humanity. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you both.
What a glorious time to be a New Yorker. These past few weeks, there has been a powerful energy moving through our city, a generosity of spirit, a refusal to give up even against very long odds, and a feeling of joy out in the streets shared by every kind of New Yorker there is. Give it up for the New York Knicks, all right? And for the mayor who brought the first championship to New York City in 53 years. Our win tonight, it belongs to those streets as well, to the people who organize there, to the people who never give up on their neighbors. It was my name on the ballot today, but tonight's victory belongs to all of you. The people here, we've been organizing together for 30 years. We've stopped the evictions of seniors and families. We won the Prospect Park West bike lane. We brought participatory budgeting to New York City. We desegregated our middle schools. We rezoned Gowanus. We won justice for fast food workers and deliveristas and Uber drivers and freelancers. And we are standing up to ICE in our neighborhoods and in our immigration courts. I will be back at 26 Federal Plaza tomorrow morning. I wish I could thank every single one of you here by name, but I'm going to have to do a few stand-ins of gratitude. So thank you one more time to our mayor, Zohran Mamdani. I want to say thank you to our public advocate, Jumaane Williams, to Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, and to a fantastic set of elected officials, including Assemblymember Bobby Carroll, and a lot of others who are in the room who I am going to say thank you to a little later.
Okay, there you go. Brad Lander with his victory speech, first and foremost thanking Mayor Zohran Mamdani, who he's now also saying was the one who helped the Knicks win at the same time. So very interesting right there. And I'm wondering now if Mayor Zohran Mamdani ducked out a little early to now head over maybe to Claire Valdez to be part of her victory speech. We shall see how all of that plays out. What'd you make of Brad Lander's words?
You know, this is interesting because Brad Lander, even though he's running on the DSA, he's not really so much of a socialist. But thanking the mayor, giving him big shout out is appropriate. It's the right thing to do. I think right now, a lot of voters are probably, residents are probably thinking, you know what, we're a blue town, but we're not a socialist town. Mm-hmm. And so how is this going to play out when you try to go to Washington and you try to get resources and pick up the phone and call leadership and be on senior committees? I think Brad Lander can do that more easily than, say, a Claire Valdez or Daralicia Avila Chevalier. Yep. But Brad, right now, that speech, tonight is his night. He deserves it. He worked hard for it, and he took a risk.
30 points.
It's huge.
30 points. I want to just throw up the New York 13 numbers real quick because this is becoming a real tight race between the two of them, Adrienne Espaillat and Daraliza Avila Chevalier. Look at this, with 49.2% of the vote. She is in the lead by over 3 points here, and 82% are in. And so it is a difference of about 2,000 votes there if you look at the numbers up top. But it is a very interesting, very tight race. And so New York 13, New York 12 are the ones we're still waiting for it to be called tonight. I want to get back to our Henry Rossoff, who is at the Lander headquarters this evening. And here is the slate of candidates right there. What was very interesting, by the way, was that Brad Lander didn't come out and endorse Daraliza Chevalier in this race. And during the debate, I said, are you endorsing? And he said, I'm not endorsing in this race. We'll get back to Henry in just a moment. Nick, what did you make of that? Because like Yvette said, he doesn't want to claim that he's DSA.
Yeah, Brad, and I know Brad pretty well. He often picks and chooses, like the mayor picks and chooses as well. So I'm not quite shocked that he didn't endorse. I think he wants to just focus on his race. Even though, to this panel's point, he was 30 points ahead in your Emerson College poll. 32 to be exact. Thank you, JC. So I just think he just didn't want to get involved.
Yeah. I want to take a look right now at New York 12 as well, because this is the other one we're waiting for it to be called. So these are the two that we kind of anticipated were going to take a little bit longer to get called. And it's a 4-point race between Alex Borez and Micah Lasher, 84% of the vote now in. But this is, again, a 4-point race between the two frontrunners. Jack Schlossberg is in a distant third there. And so, JC, what do you make right now of all of this, and what does it mean for New York City?
I think this Boris race is interesting. He's going to look at Jack and say, you're a spoiler. Those votes that you got were going to go with me, because he tends to be the more left of those two candidates between him and Micah Lasher. So there's a lot of, my goodness, what could have happened if Boris were to lose tonight, that race. I'm shocked at these numbers. I'm shocked at the 13th congressional district, only because of what I said earlier. Espaillat's a household name. As a son of Dominican immigrants, Espaillat's like the godfather. We know Espaillat. He's been, building power for well over a generation. So to see him in this position in what happened in less than a month is just incredible. And I want to know, what's the direction of the Democratic Party now? Is it really going to be this DSA party? And it seems like that's going to be
there was also this idea of a proxy war that was going on between Zohran Mamdani and Governor Kathy Hochul. Hochul endorsed Lasher. She endorsed Espaillat. She endorsed Goldman. So we know how the Goldman thing went so far. And her other two candidates, it could be Micah Lasher if he wins, and the other one could be he could lose, Joan Espaillat, if the numbers stick. So if you're kind of looking at that from that perspective, was that a thing for voters, Governor Hochul versus Mamdani?
I don't think the voters really take into consideration as much Kathy Hochul, right? She's in Albany, she is the governor, but not necessarily people are saying, oh, she's the person that we're, kind of following the way that she goes. It is definitely Mamdani. His poll numbers are higher now than even when he was elected last year. Yeah. He is seeing results unlike anybody else. It's almost like the Barack Obama. Barack Obama, when he had candidates, he definitely was the person that people wanted to go to. People still go to Barack Obama today. I think years from now, when Donnie's going to see that people are still going to be looking for his endorsement, Trump has the same touch on the other side. But it is going to be Mamdani.
Yeah, and I guess throw up the numbers again for 13, because this is a very tight race. And Nick, I'm just kind of curious, when you look at this right now, and everyone says politics is as good as your word. And Zohran Mamdani had told Adriano Espaillat that he was going to endorse him, and then didn't.
Politics is a dirty, dirty game. Yeah. We all know that. And when I heard that, I was like, ooh, there was an agreement there. You know what? I think Espaillat didn't play his politics well. Like he said, he shook the mayor's hand. Really? Like the mayor agreed to endorse you, and then when he switched teams, what did you do as the challenger?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what Espaillat did in this situation.
Let me get to our senior political reporter, Henry Rossoff, who was at the Lander headquarters. We just heard Brad Lander speak as we come to a close of this hour, Henry, and kind of what you make of the past hour and the excitement that's still going on behind you.
Well, really a truly stunning sweep of the endorsements by Mayor Zohran Mamdani. It also looks like Avila Chevalier is looking very good in New York 13, as you've been highlighting. I don't think you took the mayor's remarks live. They were very brief. He didn't mention any of the other races besides Brad Lander. He said, we need a good neighbor in Congress, following up on the Mr. Rogers theme that Lander launched his campaign with. And then he took off, presumably, to go to the Valdez campaign. And Lander's still addressing the crowd, talking about bringing the fight to President Trump and Republicans. So that's kind of what's happening here right now after a long list of thank yous, and you can see a jam-packed house here in Gowanus.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see where the mayor heads to next. Is he going to Claire Valdez or is he not? Henry, thank you very much as we come back to you in our 10 o'clock hour for our coverage there. Final words from the panel before we close out this hour and get to our 10 p.m. news. Yvette.
The Democratic Party has to really have a family meeting and talk and say, how is it that we can combine some of the stuff from the socialists along with some of the stuff from the old school, and how do we bring that together to make sure that we win for 2028?
Low turnout amongst Democrats gives you these types of results, but Mayor Mamdani proved what I said an hour ago, that he is the kingmaker of New York. He's in charge, and this is his Democratic Party in New York City. Full stop.
Nick?
Deny the challenger, deny for Mayor Mamdani.
There you go. So as we close out the hour, we have two winners in Claire Valdez and Brad Lander. We are still waiting for the all-important races of New York 12 and New York 13 to be called, and those are getting down to the wire with almost 100% of the vote now in. We shall see if those races are called in our 10 o'clock hour. But